Welcome to another edition of Talk About It with Ty. I'm so excited to have a true legend in the NFL joining me today. He is a Super Bowl champion and Super Bowl MVP, a former quarterback with the Washington Redskins and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a former head football coach and scout, and currently a key football executive with the Washington Commanders. He led the Buccaneers to 3 playoff appearances during his career and the Washington Redskins to a stunning 42-10 Super Bowl victory over the Denver Broncos in 1988. His Super Bowl performance is widely regarded as one of the greatest in Super Bowl history, breaking records for passing yards and touchdowns. His professional football career began in 1978 when he was selected by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the first round of the draft. He was the first Black quarterback ever drafted that high. As a collegiate player at Grambling State University, he posted a 36-7 record as the starting quarterback and finished 4th in the voting for the prestigious Heisman Trophy Award. In recognition of his accomplishments, he was subsequently inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, the Buccaneers Ring of Honor, and the Washington Redskins Ring of Fame. You all know who I'm talking about. It's my distinct honor today to welcome Doug Williams. Doug Williams, what a pleasure it is to have you here today.
Thank you.
I like to start off from the beginning, so we'll work our way up to the present. You grew up in Zachary, Louisiana in East Baton Rouge?
East Baton Rouge Parish.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up there.
Wow, it was 8 of us, number one. So we come from a big family.
Mm-hmm.
And, we all had something going on. But the most important thing was making sure that, we went to school. Mom and dad both had jobs. Didn't really see my mom and dad until in the evenings because mom left early, dad left early.
I understand.
And it was for the older kids to make sure that we got up and did whatever we had to do and get on the school bus to go to school.
Yeah. So aside from school, when was like your earliest memory of football and playing sports? How did you get into it?
Wow, when you talk about athletics in my family, everybody in my family did something athletically. Football was one thing, but we played basketball, baseball, football. I had sisters who ran track, sisters who played softball. So when you talk about sports and athletics in my family, my mom was a softball player. My dad had played in the minor league, not the minor league, but semi-pro league baseball. So everybody was busy doing something during the time that we was growing up. So we've always been around sports, and sports has always been a big part of our lives.
Wow. What was it that drew you to football in particular?
Well, to be honest with you, let me tell you the short story about that football thing, because I thought baseball would have given me an opportunity to go professionally.
Oh.
And basketball is something I loved. And football was something I didn't want no part of, number one.
Really?
No, because of the physicality of football.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I was one of them scary cats, didn't want to be hit, because we played a lot of football outside on the streets and in pastures and stuff like that, and tackling. I would always play wide receiver away from everybody. So if they threw me the ball, that was fine. If they didn't, that was fine too.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was in middle school, my 8th grade year, my oldest brother, who actually was a baseball player with the Cleveland Indians, and he hurt his arm, so he came back home, became a coach at the school, Cheneyville High School.
Mm-hmm.
Was a school that went from 1st all the way up to 12th grade. So he became a coach there, and he was the head basketball coach and assistant football coach.
Okay.
So we didn't have a middle school football program.
Mm-hmm.
So Coach Lucas, who's my head coach, gave Robert, my oldest brother, that we call him Sonny, but his right name was Robert. Him and Bob Wilson, they decided to coach middle school football.
Mm-hmm.
And being 8th grade, he came to me and told me I was going to play football. And I told him I didn't want to play. I wasn't going to play no football because I didn't want nothing to do with it. And he gave me an ultimatum. He said either I play football or I had to whip him. So he's 15 years older than me. So I ended up playing football.
Yeah. Long story short. And so when you ended up playing football for him, what position did you start off with?
Believe it or not, I played quarterback and middle linebacker, which that's playing defense. Wanted no part of defense. Yes. And when I got to be 9th grade, I was about 5'5". I was real short in 9th grade. I went out for the varsity football team, and Coach Luca, who I had been a trainer with and equipment manager, when I went back to get some shoes to go out to practice, he looked at me. He said, "Little boy, you better get back here and pass these shoes out.
Yeah.
I said, no, coach, I'm gonna play football. And I got a pair of shoes and
Mhm.
football team, ninth grade,
Mhm.
ended up being a starting safety. And the first game of the season, we played a school by the name of Second Ward. And they had a guy on that team named Terry O'Bisky, who him and I are friends to this day. You look at Terry today, that's probably was the size he was in ninth grade.
Mhm.
Big running back. And, we played him. And it came down to him and me go between the goal line. And I tackled him and I got up and I went straight to the sideline. I told Coach Lucas, Coach, I ain't playing no more defense because I didn't want no part of it. And,
Yeah.
it took me my 11th grade year when the starting quarterback hurt his ankle. And then I became the starting quarterback in 11th grade. And from there on, everything just took off. And I had 2 pretty good years of football. And
Okay.
Coach Robinson came calling and ended up in Grambling.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's move on to that, your college career. How pivotal was your decision to play for Coach Eddie Robinson in preparing you for the NFL and your success in your career?
Well, like I said, the high school that I went to, Cheneyville High School, and it's about 20 minutes north to Baton Rouge.
Mhm.
And that's about 15 minutes from Southern University. That's where my home was from.
Yeah.
And just about everybody who went to my high school went to Grambling University, Grambling State. It was Grambling College at that time.
Oh, okay.
Everybody. I mean, Leroy Carter, Henry Dahlia, the Huggins, the Bennetts, the Shanklin, everybody that was related to me, all of them went to Grambling University to go to school.
Mhm.
So Coach Robinson, when you think about it, back in my day, when you talk about Coach Robinson, you talk about Grambling State University, all you saw on Sunday morning was Grambling winning.
Mm.
So, you get an opportunity to go to Grambling, but it wasn't my choice, to be honest with you, to go to Grambling. I wanted to go somewhere where my mom and dad would have a great opportunity just to see me anytime they got ready. I wanted to go to Southern University,
Yeah, yeah.
15 minutes from the house. And but Coach Robinson called my house one night. We had, you might not know anything about this, we had what they call a party line.
I know about the party
Okay, well,
line.
we had 11 people on our party line. So you're gonna get a phone call every now and then. So it was late one night. Coach Robinson called my mom, and my mom came in and woke me up about 12 o'clock at night, somewhere along that neighborhood, and she told me I was going to Grambling.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
the decision that was made for you.
she woke me up. She said, "Hey, you going to Grambling?" I looked at her and said, "How I'm going to Grambling?" She said, "Well, I just talked to Coach Robinson. He said you was gonna go to class, you was gonna graduate, and you was gonna go to church." And the rest of history. I went to Grambling.
Okay.
Best decision she ever made,
For you.
other than birth to me.
Oh.
Let me say.
How would you say that Coach Robinson shaped you, not just as a quarterback, but as a man during your time at Grambling State?
Well, I think number one, you got to spend time with Coach Robinson, spend time around Coach Robinson, and just see him operate. I mean, we had so many guys up there in school at that time that was either, coming from a home where there wasn't no father or where it
Mhm.
was a father. Discipline was already there. And Coach Rob was one of them guys that was all about discipline without using physical abuse of anybody.
Mhm.
The way he talked to people, the way he told you what it's all about, the way he tried to make you understand how important it was to go and get an education, how important it was to be in America, how to treat people, and things like that. And spending 5 years with Coach doing that, at the end of the day, you can't help but have a lot of admiration for the guy
Yeah.
because me being in the position I'm in today, a lot of it has to do with what Coach Robinson did back then, would give me an opportunity to understand what he was all talking about, getting a degree,
Mhm.
treating people like you want to be treated, and,
Absolutely.
and doing it the best American way to get it done. He used to tell us all the time, no matter what you want to do, you can only do it in America. And
Mm.
that's how he looked at it.
Okay. What areas of your game did Coach Robinson push you to develop the most?
Well, as a quarterback, myself, James Harris, who I do some things with, was ahead of me. Coach Robinson always wanted a guy who was going to make the NFL,
Mm.
and he knew what it took. It took more than just handing the ball off. Took more than just throwing the football. It took a lot more. Character had to be a part of it. Yeah, you had to be smart enough to understand what the game was all about, but at
Yes.
the same time, it's all about how you carry yourself. Because
Mhm.
today, in today's time, quarterback is the face of all the franchise, and it's always
Yes.
been that way.
Mhm.
And that was one of the things he preached to us all the time is hell, you got to know how to carry yourself, cat. That's what he used to always tell us. And things like that, you learn just by being around a guy like Eddie Robinson.
Very nice. What was your biggest challenge playing in college or any setbacks that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Well, my biggest challenge was my sophomore year when I hurt my knee. I had a knee operation. The last game of the season, we was playing against Southern University out of all people, and I hurt my knee. And then that's the challenge right there. Mentally, it comes down to being mentally tough because at that particular time, the way they do surgery today, they don't put a big cast on you.
Hmm.
But I had a big 60-pound cast on my leg and couldn't move for 6 or 7 weeks, and my mindset all just told me that I wasn't gonna play no more football.
Oh.
Because, going through what I was going through at that time mentally, I was just telling myself, I'm done,
Hmm.
and semester break came around, I'm at home, and my mom wanted to know, when I was going back to school, and, I'm still on crutches and everything. And I told her, I said, I'm not going back. I'm done. I'm not playing no more football.
Oh.
And she get on the telephone, who she called? Eddie Robinson.
Yeah.
And she told him that, I was here and was down, didn't want to play no more football and all that. So what coach do? He sent out a guy by the name of Ernest Sterling.
Hmm.
Next thing we had a Grambling station wagon parked in my front yard. And they was moving my things out and putting them in the station wagon and loaded me up and went back to Grambling.
Oh.
So things like that,
Yeah.
you remember those things, but at the same time, you still had to deal with the injury that I had and overcoming them, the rehab and the work you had to put in to
Mhm.
get where you needed to be. And by the time the next year rolled around, I was ready to play. The first game, I was afraid to play because I didn't know what my knee was going to do. My
Yeah.
mentality was I was going to hurt it again if somebody hit me. But we played a game against Alcorn and they beat us pretty bad, 23-0. The only game I ever played without scoring. And I got hit so many times, and after it was over with, I realized my knee wasn't going nowhere. I was going to be all right. And from
Hmm.
that day on, I just took off, and everything got to rolling.
Did you miss any games between the season, like in the first?
I missed no game
No
because
games.
the
Okay.
Bayou Classic, which is against Southern and Grambling, the last game of the year.
Where you got
Yeah,
injured.
and that's when I got hurt.
Okay.
But I came back a lot earlier than most people would expect because the injury like that usually carried a 12-month time to get back. And
Yeah.
I got back in probably 9 months or something like that. So came back and finished the season.
Okay. How did your confidence and leadership evolve as you were playing for the Tigers?
Well, leadership, is something that I'm a firm believer. Some things are taught and some things are caught. You can't teach leadership.
Hmm.
You can teach about it and what it all involves. But
Hmm.
I think a true leader comes from doing things and people see what you're doing and they start following you, and that's where the leadership comes from. I just went out and did what the job was all about, played the game the way I knew how to play it, and got everybody involved and led, and everybody, you become the leader.
Hmm.
I don't think you can just say, look, this is what I want you to do. I want you to be the leader to an individual and they become leaders. I
Hmm.
think it just happened by what you do. And I've been fortunate enough, no matter what I've done, and unfortunately or fortunately, any way you want to look at it, people tend to go along with what I say or what I do. And
Hmm.
I think that's important when you put yourself in a position like that.
Hmm.
And it's not a matter of putting yourself, it's a matter of just happening. Because I see it now, just like my job now. You see certain guys, you realize that are natural born leaders.
Hmm.
And I think that just happens.
Would you consider yourself a natural born
I
leader?
would have to say, even when I was in middle school,
Yeah.
on the basketball team, middle school, even football, I didn't want to be no part of. Every situation that I've been in, baseball, whatever, I've become that guy that people look at as the leader of our pack. And to me, I don't look at that as something that is lightly put up on my plate. I think that's something that you got to take and be glad in it and do what you're supposed to do as a leader.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So you had an incredible run at Grambling State. You were twice named the Black College Player of the Year. You finished fourth in the 1977 Heisman Trophy voting, becoming the first player from an HBCU to finish that high. You led the nation in passing yards and touchdown passes in your senior season and set NCAA records. When the accolades and records started coming in, how did you stay focused on the team rather than just your individual success?
Well, you just hit the nail on the head when you say individual, because when you think about football, it's 11 people out there. It's 22 as a starter, and you can't do it alone. You know, you got offensive line, you got running back, receiver. No matter what I accomplished during that time as a player, I didn't do it by myself. It's a team situation, and I felt like when I won an award, I didn't win it. We won it.
Yes.
And to me, I think at the end of the day, when you do things like that and recognize the people that help you get where you are, your reward's going to be a lot greater.
Yeah. So it never got to your head.
No, I don't. I mean, even now, I go home to Zachary, Louisiana, a house down there, and I see all these plaques and stuff. And, to me, that's what they are. They're plaques for what I've done, what the people we did it together. If I was a boxer or a tennis player and I won those plaques, then I can say it's all me. But at the end of the day, when I look at a plaque, it ain't just me, it's us.
Yeah.
It's just like being a coach. Grambling, when I became a coach, the same way. When we win, it wasn't me. I got players who call me all the time, and when I talk to them, the thing I tell them, hey, thank you for giving us an opportunity to win the game that we won. Because coach didn't do it, you did it.
Yeah. At the time, did it hit you how historic some of these accomplishments were, or did you realize it later?
Well, I knew because we had such a great SID, Sports Information Director, in College A. Nicholson at Grambling, finishing fourth in the Heisman. I know what that meant. Not only in the Heisman, you're talking about a young man from a small black college in Louisiana finishing fourth with so many guys that at major universities. And, you got to take that and say, you know what, you got to feel pretty good about finishing that, because not only was the spotlight on me, it was a spotlight on Grambling State University, spotlight on the team and the university as a whole.
So when you decided you wanted to go pro, was it a game moment, a talk with a coach, or some sort of self-actualization, some moment where it clicked to you that the NFL was in reach? Tell me about that.
Well, number one, going to the NFL is not your choice. You don't make that choice. They make that choice. I had a scout that used to come by Grambling all the time, and Bob Mormon, bless his soul, used to come to Grambling, and for some reason he took a liking to me. He used to call me a little stump jumper. And my junior year in college, he told me, he say, next year I'm gonna be here looking at you. I didn't think nothing of it, but he said next year we'll be here watching you next year. And it clicked in for me mentally, say, dog, he's telling me I might have a chance to go to the National Football League. You got to understand, during the time I was playing, black quarterbacks wasn't around. It was like hen teeth. They were scarce. So the chance of going to the NFL as a black quarterback was something else. But when that time came, I was at Grambling at the athletic facility, around Coach Rob. And I told him, and I meant this from the bottom of my heart, because going to Grambling, I never dreamed of playing football. I wanted to be a coach like my oldest brother was. And I told Coach Rob, I said, Coach, if I don't go in the third round, I don't want to go to the NFL. And he told me, he said, Cat, you can't look at it that way. You got to go show them that you can play.
Yeah.
I said, well, Coach, third round. He said, hell, Cat, I don't care. If they draft you, you got to go. That's how Coach was, right?
Yeah.
I said, okay, Coach. So, lo and behold, it wasn't the third round. It ended up being the first round.
Right.
And that in itself was significant, because I know from a history standpoint, drafting the guy in the first round that come from a small black institution was historic in itself, to get that opportunity to be a quarterback in the National Football League.
And so in that moment, you did really recognize the weight and the significance of being drafted in the first round.
Yeah, but see, we talk about the significance, we talk about the history. Going to Grambling State University, everybody talk about the history of the black quarterback. Where for me, mentally, going to Grambling, wasn't no history there. Everybody there was black.
Yeah.
All my coaches was black. So it wasn't like the history of the black quarterback. It was the quarterback at Grambling history. Not black. It was Grambling. And when I was drafted in Tampa, every time I saw an article about me being drafted in Tampa, it was always Tampa Bay's black quarterback, or either Doug Williams, the black quarterback, going to Tampa. Stuff like that, and things that I didn't even have to deal with when I was at Grambling.
Yeah.
Because I was a black quarterback. I was a quarterback at Grambling, wasn't a black quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's just like during the Super Bowl when the guy asked me about how long you been a black quarterback.
Been
Uh,
black all my life.
I've been brushing my teeth a long time, and it didn't take much to realize what color I was.
Yeah.
But that's what you had to deal with when I came out a
Mm.
Grambling as a quarterback was.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you couldn't look at that as something to hold you back.
Okay.
You just worry about the opportunity to play the game that you deserve to be playing, and that's how I looked at it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you have spoken openly before about racism that you faced when you entered the NFL. When did it begin, and did it take you by surprise?
Well, growing up, we talk about sports growing up. I can say this: my mom and dad did an excellent job of protecting us from what was really going on out
Yeah.
there. I lived in a neighborhood where everybody within a mile of that neighborhood was the same color I was, so we didn't worry about the
Mm-hmm.
racism. But she used to always say, "You don't go out there towards that road in the evening and stuff like that." But we didn't understand. We just thought she was telling, "Don't go out there around the traffic."
Yeah.
But as we gotten older, we understood what she was talking about because
Mm-hmm.
so many things happen on the road where people throw things at you and things like that. Because at one time, LSU and Ole Miss play a football game in Baton Rouge. We wasn't allowed on the streets at all
Mm-hmm.
because Plank Road, where I lived right off Plank Road, it ran from Baton Rouge all the way to Mississippi. And you used to see a lot of rebel flags coming through there, people throwing things. And that's what she was telling us. But you didn't learn that until you got a lot older and understood what they was doing.
Right.
So I never really let it bother me then. And then went to an all-black high school up until, ninth grade is when they first integrated. So
Mm-hmm.
I only played in high school with 2 white guys my whole high school career.
Mm-hmm.
So, and went to Grambling, so it was all black.
Yeah.
So, the black and white didn't bother me. I knew where I was, I knew who I was, and I enjoyed being at Grambling State University. Then look at all the things that had to go with being black and going out into America and had to deal with the white population and things like that as a player.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't worry about it.
Well, when you experienced it after you joined the league, did it take you by surprise?
Yeah, it did eventually, but then you realize what you was up against, and I always thought maybe I had coaches. John McKay, who's the head coach at Tampa at that particular time, was a head coach out in Southern California, who had coached Jimmy Jones, a black quarterback in 1968, and I came out in '78. So John McKay understood blacks
Mm-hmm.
as a
Mm-hmm.
quarterback. It
Yeah.
didn't bother him.
Yeah.
I mean, he used to call me Dougie, and they always say if somebody call you, if he put an IE on your name, that means he likes you.
Yeah.
So he called me Dougie. So I know word about John McKay protected me and all the other players that was African American on his team.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't play that. He was
Yeah.
one of those guys. So I didn't within the confound of the team. I didn't worry about it. My teammates. I had white teammates. I never walked in the dressing room. Never walked in the huddle where that was racism. Now, whatever their mindset was might have been a different ball game, but I didn't feel it in the locker room or in the huddle. All the racism was outside of that,
Yes.
where people just didn't understand how a black man can be the quarterback of my team. That's what they look at. This is my team, and I got a black quarterback
Yeah.
and things like that. But I try not to put myself in those positions where I had to hear it. Nobody really walked up to me and just told me that, but you saw it around,
Mm-hmm.
and you got hate mail and things like that, and
Right.
but they was all cowards because nobody would put a return address. They just send you a letter, send you a box of rotten watermelons and things like that, and you had to deal with it.
Mm. So the racism and the hate from the outside, from the public, did you ever use that? I don't know. Did it ever fuel you to feel like you had to prove yourself, or were you confident in who you were and felt that you didn't have anything to prove to the public?
Growing up athletically and being a competitor most of my life, I never felt like I had to prove anything to anybody.
I like hearing that.
I feel like whatever I give is what you got.
Yep.
And if that ain't good enough, so be it.
Too bad. Yeah.
That's how I deal with it. I never looked at it that I got to prove anything to anybody.
I
So
like
at the
that.
end of the day, I just like people say, well, you had all this pressure on you. There wasn't no pressure on me because I'm a firm believer. Pressure is something that an individual put up on himself. And I refuse to let another individual put pressure on me.
I love that. So you started your career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Joe Gibbs was your offensive coordinator, correct?
My rookie year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when
Yeah.
you joined the Redskins, he was your head coach. So tell me about your relationship with Joe Gibbs and how it evolved during your time on both teams.
Well, in Tampa, let me say, when I was coming out in Tampa, Joe Gibbs flew down to Monroe, Louisiana.
Hmm.
I was doing student teaching at Carroll High School, and he came and spent 3 days in Monroe, Louisiana. And he came to the school every day, and what he did was sat in the back of the classroom. I was in the physical education teaching health and everything, and he sat in the back and just let the school day go by. When the school day go by, he get on the board and we go over football and things that I did as a player. And then after that, we just talk real life about how I grew up, my family, and that's all we did. And from my understanding, Coach Gibbs went back to Tampa and he told John McKay, he said, look, if we want a franchise quarterback, we got to draft a kid from Grambling.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, I ended up doing that. And Coach Gibbs was one of the coaches on the field during that time. And I missed a whole week of practice. And when I did come to practice, I had a coach by the name of Bill Nelson. And Bill was loud, real loud. And I did something wrong, and Bill screamed at me and started hollering at me. My first day of practice, and Coach Gill was on the other end of the field. And he came running all the way down, and he got in Coach Nelson's face, and he said, "Hey, don't holler at him anymore. Don't holler. He just got here. He got to learn like everybody else."
Oh.
And everybody stopped and started looking, and then we carried on. And what happened that we had training camp, 2-a-day practices, and every day after the second practice, when Coach Gibbs got out of meeting, I went home with Coach Gibbs every day. I
Oh.
went home with him. I ate dinner with his two boys, bless their soul,
Mm.
Carr and JD, and his wife Pat. We all sat at the dinner table. We ate, and when we finished, they left him and I, and they're going over the playbook. So the
Wow.
relationship is still strong to this day.
Yeah.
You know, he gonna forever be somebody that I'm gonna look up to.
Oh, it's beautiful. What would you say was your biggest adjustment going from college to playing in the NFL?
Well, the biggest adjustment, the work, hard work as a player, because in the pro ranks, what we did in college, man, was you thought it was somebody was beating you to keep working, but it wasn't like that. You had to work in college. In the pros, it's a more of a mental attitude because
Mm.
you're in the office all day, every day,
Mm-hmm.
the whole day. So
Mm-hmm.
everything is football, and it means you got to learn all the nuance and everything that has to go with your position and what we're looking for and things like that. So when I looked at it from that stand, it was more of a mental adjustment to the game than it was a physical adjustment in the pros.
Okay,
Mhm.
interesting. Aside from the Super Bowl, what's your favorite memory on or off the field that means a lot to you still personally?
Wow, even after the Super Bowl, the thing that means a lot to me,
Mm-hmm.
and people, it might sound crazy, but it is what it is. Being a high school coach at my old high school,
Mm.
the field was named Doug Williams Field. I'm on the sideline. My oldest brother, my three other brothers on the sideline, and we coaching against Peyton Manning, his brother over there, his daddy Archie, his other brothers over there, and every coach in the SEC was at this football game. And the fact that these kids went out and played, and we ended the season as an undefeated season, and
Mm-hmm.
to me, that was probably the greatest moment in my life because it wasn't about me, it was about other people. And to
Yeah.
see these kids, 15, 16, and 17-year-old, hugging and kissing each other, and looking up in the stands. You got people in the stands that are hugging each other that don't even like each other.
Yeah.
So that was a good day just to see that. So
Mm-hmm.
when I think about the things that mean a lot to me, don't get me wrong, Super Bowl mean an awful lot. But going back and helping other young folks is the biggest thing for me.
I love that. Well, let's talk about the Super Bowl next. Your historical performance in Super Bowl 22. Do you consider that your greatest career achievement?
Well, I think when you think about what I did as an individual, as a player, you got to say the Super Bowl
Mm-hmm.
is something that caps off your career.
Yeah.
And that day after the Super Bowl, I can remember in my mind walking off with my helmet in the air and remembering what I was thinking. The first person that came to mind, to be honest with you, was Martin Luther King. And when you talk about
Mm.
the mountaintop, And that day, I felt like I had reached the mountaintop in what I was doing, and knowing what I had to endure, getting to that point, and that's how I felt. Didn't worry about yesterday. Wasn't gonna worry about tomorrow. It was all about what had just happened.
Yeah. How soon did it dawn on you that that wasn't just like a personal victory, but also a victory for players that came before you and players that would come after you?
And you're right about that. The players before me is the one that I think about more than anything, because you had guys that like James Harris and Marlon Briscoe and Joe Gilliam and guys like that who didn't get the opportunity that I got. That could have been in the Super Bowl before me. And just so happened I'm the one that was standing on hollow ground, and hopefully I was standing on their shoulder. On that hollow ground, and the guys that come after me, you just wish that they understood what it was all about when they get to that threshold of being in the Super Bowl. I think that's important.
Absolutely. So everyone remembers the 4 touchdowns in the second quarter. I actually watched it on YouTube. It was a fantastic game. You look great out there, Doug. No, it was so exciting. But what is a moment, maybe in the locker room, in the tunnel, on the sidelines? What's a moment that's really personal to you from the Super Bowl that
I got two. The one when I got hurt and went down was getting up. When the trainers came out, I can remember, putting my hand out and telling them, don't touch me. And I told them, if I get up, if the good Lord let me get up, I'm going to finish this game. That's one. And the other one, after the game was over, when I went to the tunnel, I ran into Coach Robinson. And I didn't even know he was at the game. And we saw each other, and we just embraced each other, and we both was throwing snot, if you understand what I'm saying. Because of what had just transpired. And I can remember him telling me, he said, Cat, you don't understand what had just happened. He said, this was like Joe Louis knocking out Matt Snelling, talking about the history of blacks, and then he said, Cat, it wasn't about the 4 TD passes, it was the fact that you got off the turf. And that was something he always preached to us. But when you get knocked down, you got to get up.
Okay. So what does the Super Bowl mean to you personally, not just as a historic moment or a career achievement, but as a life experience?
Well, that's a tough one because, I did win the Super Bowl along with all my other teammates, and that's something that you got to hold in high plateau. But at the same time, it's not the only thing. It's things that come after that, and even to this day, I still do some things to try to help young black guys to get to the next level. I think that's the most important thing.
Passing it down. Okay. After your Super Bowl win, or that Super Bowl win, because of course it's a win for the whole team, but did you personally feel a shift in how people treated or respected you as a quarterback, given the racism and the criticisms that you had experienced in your career?
Wow, I'm gonna say this. I think a lot of folks understood what we had to go through, and I think a lot of it has transpired basically over the last few years when there have been some documentaries that have been out there, and really people get a chance to sit there and look at it. Because I had a lot of people come to me and say, "Man, I'm really sorry what you had to deal with, what you had to go through."
Okay.
Because they thought it was just a straight interstate, just get to the Super Bowl, but it was. We always say, James and Shaq, and we always say it was a road less traveled. We traveled different roads than other quarterbacks to get where they got to go. So I have people come up and tell me that, but at the end of the day, it's all right because that's water under the bridge, and we just got to keep going forward.
Right, exactly. You played your final season with the Redskins in 1989. What was the transition like from being a highly regarded and famous NFL quarterback to the next chapter of your life?
Well, I think if you look at it from the famous part, it would have been a lot tougher than what it was. It wasn't tough at all, But I understood, that I couldn't play football forever. It was going to end someday, and it ended in '89. I wanted to go and be a high school coach, but that year when it first ended, I went and worked for BET and helped broadcast black college football. Wanted to be involved, wanted to stay involved. And eventually, I became a coach at Punky High School, 45 minutes from Zachary, and first head coach and athletic director there and then the next year, I went and worked Cleo Field, who was a senator up here, the youngest senator in the country at one time. I worked for him in partnership for a drug-free Louisiana,
Oh.
and realized that that wasn't my calling.
Okay.
No, 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 no. You know, but what it did
Uh-huh.
give me an opportunity to go and touch a lot of young people's lives, because
Mhm.
I go all over the state and different schools and stuff like that and speak. But at the end of the day, coaching was my calling. I ended up coming back to my high school, and that's where we ended up undefeated season, got beat in the semifinals, beat Peyton Manning and everybody, and eventually left there and went to the Naval Academy. I left the Naval Academy and went to Jacksonville as a scout.
Mhm.
Stayed there for a couple of years, left there and went to Morehouse College for a head coaching job. And then Grambling came coming, went to Grambling for 6 years, left there and went to Tampa for 6 more years.
Full circle.
Full
Yeah.
circle, left Tampa and came back and became the head coach at Grambling again. And 8 years of coaching at Grambling, we was able to win 4 SWAC championship and 2 national championship. And then when I left Grambling last time, I ended up here over the last 12 years. I've been here in
Yeah.
Washington.
Yeah. What lessons from your journey did you instill in your athletes as a coach?
Persevering.
Okay.
You
Tell me
know,
more
you,
about that.
well, you got to believe no matter what you do, if it's something you want, you might not get exactly what you want,
Mhm.
but if you keep pecking away, you're gonna get something that you deserve.
Mhm.
And I think if you look at it that way, and you never quit, quitting is easy. I always say
True.
there's one thing that everybody in America can do, and that is quit. But everybody can't succeed.
I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Very wise words from Doug Williams. So you are an executive with the Commanders now. Tell us what your role is like, and did it change with the new ownership?
Yes, it did. I'm the senior advisor to the general manager,
Okay.
and even at now, what I do now is um, personnel. I do all the quarterbacks during the draft. We're getting ready for the draft now, and I write a report up on all those, along with all the scouts that are in the road. And
Mhm.
when it's time to talk about certain players in the country, we just all get together in the meeting room for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, from 8 o'clock in the morning to 7 at night, and we talk about them. And I read my report. The other guy who got a report on the guy read theirs, and and that's how we end up picking players.
Okay.
Mhm.
And have you also had the opportunity to act as a mentor for
I
players on the
do them all. They
Commanders?
always come to my office.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I sit down with them all the time. Like Jayden, his quarterback room is across the hall from me, and see him every day. And he'll stop in there and we'll talk a few minutes. All other players, man, they like coming. They call me OG.
Okay, you
Yeah,
are the OG.
yeah. They say I've been around long enough. They call me OG, and now,
It's a term of endearment.
yes, and now I'm blessed to have my son in there as the quarterback coach. So I see
Yes.
him every day. So it's a blessing, to be honest with you.
And your son, he just was hired recently, I think in January of this year,
He
correct?
was quarterback coach in Atlanta, and they fired the coach in Atlanta, and he interviewed here, and Dan Quinn hired him because Dan told me he did such a great job on his interview, and people wanted to know did I have anything to do with it, and I told them I have nothing to do with coaching.
Mm-hmm.
That's coach's job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What do you think it'll be like working together with your son in different roles during the season?
Well, the good thing about my son is the fact that it's being close. We've been close for a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna continue to be that. Is the fact that I see him every day.
Yeah.
And he got 2 kids. He got a little girl and he got a little boy,
Oh.
and I see them every day.
Yeah,
Well, I might
yeah.
not see them every day because they're not gonna live. They probably live about 15, 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
but at least I know they're in the area, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
good feeling when you got family close by, and the fact that you all both are doing the same thing
Yeah.
makes it a lot better.
What are your thoughts on the potential for this current team to win a Super Bowl?
Well, the Super Bowl is a long ways away from here.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing about this team is get to the playoffs.
Okay.
And I think if you take it like that, you deal with it a lot the way it should be dealt with. Because when you're talking about the Super Bowl, you got to win games to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, what, you think we can get
And
there?
I think we got to win some games.
Okay.
I think we got to get to the playoff.
Okay.
That's the most important thing now for us is to get enough players in here, let them play well,
Mm-hmm.
and get to the playoff. And when you get to the playoff, anything can happen.
Okay.
Mhm.
What lessons did the NFL teach you that people outside of football may not realize?
Wow, that's a tough one because I don't know what lesson it taught me, but I know it's about persevering and going forward and
Mm-hmm.
not quitting and not giving up. That's the one thing I know the NFL has taught me. You know, I've been around this league a long time, and sometimes I sit at home and say, you know what, it's time to go home. But at the same time, I say, if I go home, I ain't gonna get a chance to see these young guys go out
Yeah.
and work every day.
Hmm.
And it's a pleasure watching them work, man, and getting to a certain point of their life and their career. I think that's what the NFL has really taught me is to just make sure people understand what they're doing and make sure they enjoy the fact that they being a part of the NFL.
Yeah. When people look back at your career years from now, what do you hope they say about Doug Williams, what you stand for beyond football?
Well, I'm gonna say this some of I got two sons and both of them came up and they say, you know, we're gonna take the old man to DC for a couple of nights. So we all the boys went to DC and stayed at a hotel
Hmm.
a couple of nights, and the next day we went out on the wharf,
Hmm.
and we were just sitting out there, and DJ, my youngest son, asked me, he said, "Dad, what you want people to say about you, you know, when you're no longer here?"
Hmm.
And I looked at him, I said, "Hey man, whatever they want to put in between the dash, that's who I am, because I can't say what I want people to think of me.
Hmm.
People got to say what they think of me.
Yeah.
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 So I figure, you know, the dash in between 1955 and whatever,
Whatever they put.
that's who I am.
All righty.
Mhm.
So, for my final question, it's been so fun chatting with you, by the way. What advice would you give to young athletes about perseverance and handling? I guess you didn't really so much talk about the pressure, but the complexities, the challenges, and the obstacles of becoming a professional athlete in general.
Well, you know, number one, you know, I didn't have all the obstacles in my way growing up.
Mhm.
You know, didn't have the cell phone, didn't have the iPad, didn't
That's
have
not an
all the
obstacle.
games and
Maybe a
everything.
little bit distractions,
Look,
but
and, you know, kids today is a little different. You know,
Mhm.
it's hard to get guys to play football, basketball, baseball in high school. I think
Mm.
that's where the problem lies. You got some
Okay.
people will, and in college now with the NIL and everything, you know, you can transfer here, you can transfer over there, whatever. And a lot of kids get knocked off the stands by transferring two or three times, chasing the money. And you can't
Oh,
get mad with a kid who got a chance to make $200,000 or $300,000 by transferring to this school to that school.
yeah.
But a lot of them get lost in the shuffle because at the end of the day, if you don't put anything on tape to show that you can play, you won't get a chance to go to the NFL. Don't get me wrong, every kid that plays sports is not gonna go anyway.
True.
But if you that athlete that understand that you got an opportunity, it bodes well if you just go to a place and stick there and play it out and let your time come. But at the end of the day, the distraction that is out there now for these young folks is bad, man. I always say to a kid, the most important thing is trying to chase a degree.
Mhm.
And if you
Mhm.
get the degree, when football is no longer there for you, you got something to lean on.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I'm worried about. A lot of them might not get that chance.
Mm. Okay. So your advice would be cut out the distractions,
And that's a
chase
tough
the
one.
degree.
That's a
Yeah.
tough one.
Hmm.
That's a real tough one to tell them to cut out the distraction because the distraction are there.
Yeah.
And you know, you got to be a very disciplined individual to be able to work through all the distractions and become the person that you want to be without
Hmm.
the distraction.
Yeah. Well, Doug, it's been such an honor hearing from you today, sharing your stories about your journey and your words of wisdom. As we wrap up, is there anything you're working on now, like projects, causes, or initiatives that you'd like people to know about or support?
Yeah, I don't know how many people know some of the things that myself and James Harris, we started the Black College Football Hall of Fame 17 years ago.
Okay.
And every year we have an induction in Atlanta
Hmm.
in June that we induct five or six guys that from all HBCUs, no matter where they're from, as far as induction. And the fact that the induction is in Atlanta, but we're going to be housed in Canton, Ohio with the NFL. And people don't understand how big that is.
Hmm.
You got the NFL Hall of Fame and the Black College Football Hall of Fame going to be together. So we
Okay.
do that, and we also do the All-State Legacy Bowl, which we just finished up a couple weeks ago in New Orleans.
Hmm.
And that's an all-star game with all the HBCUs across the country. We picked all-stars, 50 all-stars from each side. We got the Gaither team, which is Jay Gaither, used to be the coach at Florida A&M, we got the Robinson team. It used to be Coach Robinson team at Grambling, and each one of them got 50 players, and we bring in co-coaches. Whoever won the conference become head coach, and then each one of them can bring 5 coaches from their team, which means each side have 12 coaches.
Okay.
And we have an all-star game with that. And then we have a classic up in Canton on Labor Day weekend.
Okay, so that's coming up this year.
That's coming up, Labor Day weekend, and I think that's going to be Johnson C. Smith and Albany State going to play in that classic in Canton, Ohio. So we keep doing stuff like that. You know, the Legacy Bowl really is to try to give these young guys a chance to be seen by the National Football League. Because, you know, they hadn't drafted a lot of guys from HBCUs. We just want to give them an opportunity to be seen, and hopefully that some of those guys get a chance.
All right. And if anyone wanted to find out more information about the Legacy Bowl, where could they find it?
Well, you can go to Black College Football Hall of Fame website. You can go to the Legacy Bowl website, and it's a nice website. I think it's .org. You know, like allstatelegacybowl.org and blackcollegefootball.org. You know, and all the information is there.
All righty. Well, thank you again. It's been a pleasure to sit down and talk with you.
Been my pleasure.